And now the man who was the Conservatives' biggest donor before the last election says he won't back the Prime Minister. John Caudwell was the founder of the mobile phones retailer Phones for You and donated £500,000 to the Tories before the 2019 election. Well, John joins me now. Great to have you on Sky News. So, listen, you gave the Tory party £500,000 at that last election. That's not going to happen this time round. Tell us why, John.
Well, that was a one-off donation anyway, and that was due to my fear of a Labour government run by Corbyn and McDonnell. But over the last 4 years, I've been extremely disappointed in lots of management issues in the way the Tories are managing the economy. But this, I think, is really devastating because the biggest problem that we all face in humanity is the environment and climatic change. And by making our date for diesel and combustion engines 2030, we led Europe, we led the world. And that leading of the world would bring technologies into the UK and put us ahead of the world. Now, in addition to that, as advocated in my Caudwell Pandemic Recovery that I launched in June 2020, I wanted an environmental enterprise zone where we encourage companies from all over the world to come to the UK and develop environmental technologies. And I wanted this for two reasons. One is because that is where the future is. That's where there's going to be huge financial growth and export opportunities over the coming 20, 30, 40 years. And so that was one part of it. But the other part of it is to play our role in saving the world from the impending doom that is coming down the road in somewhere between 10 and 30 years' time.
Well, the Prime Minister says, you know, he is on target to hit net zero. That's what he has said. What he's doing, I suppose, is slightly delaying that ban on petrol and diesel cars. So it's not a complete U-turn, but what he is saying is he's prepared to make these difficult decisions and there isn't an endless pot of money. What would you say to that?
I would say, first of all, it's a devastating mistake because we might already be past the tipping point. And who says net zero by 2050 is soon enough? We need to do everything in our power. But also, doing everything in our power won't reduce people's standard of living. We can use doing everything in our power to attract businesses from all over the world by giving special tax breaks, by making a special enterprise zone, to bring companies into the UK to make Britain the focal point of environmental technologies. And from that, not in 2 or 3 years' time, but in 5 to 10 years' time, we could have a huge export industry that would then grow Britain's GDP enormously. So I don't see it as either or. I see the two going together. We invest in environmental technologies now, we push like mad, and what that does is grows Britain's GDP and looks after Britain in the future at the same time as looking after the world's environmental issues.
So what you're saying, in other words, is that Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister that turned his back on climate change?
Well, I don't know I'd go as far as to say turned his back on climate change, but I think, you know, he isn't understanding that there's an opportunity here to be one of the world leaders in environmental technology, and that is commensurate with growing Britain's GDP. Clearly, if we can make a real business out of environmental technology, we can create hundreds of thousands of jobs, lead the world, and increase Britain's GDP massively. And with that, then the average person's standard of living goes up, not down, and we help to save the world. So I just don't understand the thinking that goes behind this at all.
But when it comes to electric cars, Rishi Sunak is only delaying it at the same pace as the rest of the European Union.
Well, we don't want to be Me Too. We want to lead. We want to be winners. And we want to be winners for Britain's growth, for Britain's prosperity, for Britain's poor people, and to help save the world.
So you've previously criticised Boris Johnson after Partygate, and you haven't donated to the Conservative Party since 2019. What are your thoughts now as we gear up for a general election? Will you be donating any money to the Conservative Party, do you think?
Well, look, I only donated once. That's the first thing to say. I'm not a prolific donator to political parties. I'll donate if I feel strongly enough about the issues that are in force in that day. The way the Tories are performing at the moment, it's not just a question of whether I donate, it's a question of whether I support by my vote. And that's a very depressing situation, since I've believed in Tory policies and principles for the whole of my life. And I find myself now diverging away from those principles because, mainly, more than anything else, this climatic issue, which we can bury our head in the sand if we want to. We can say 2050 is perfectly okay for net zero. We can say 2035 won't affect net zero, but 2050 may not be early enough. We might be so close to the tipping point, we need to do everything in our power. But I reinforce the point that I make. Doing everything in our power gives us energy independence. It gives us technology that we can export all around the world. It gives us GDP growth. This doesn't steal away from the average working man's living standards. This enhances and grows in a way that we become the envy of the world, that we export all these technologies, that we grow GDP, and we help to save the absolute calamity that's heading our way from an environmental point of view.
OK, for now, John Caudwell, thank you so much for your time here on Sky News.